Good morning, everyone, and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. Give me just a second so that I can share the Spanish interpretation information. Buenas tardes, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros en otro foro comunitario con SOC. Como siempre, ustedes pueden escuchar en español a través de nuestra línea de interpretación. Y el número que hay que marcar es 646-749-3122. Y luego hay que poner la contraseña, cual es 779-328-221. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Gabe Charles, the program manager at SOC, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you all today a presentation with Carlene from Wisconsin Voices. She's the Fair Maps organizer there. And so we'll be learning all about gerrymandering and fair maps and the redistricting process in Wisconsin through a presentation that she shared with us on the forum in the past. So we'll be doing that. But I also want to remind you all that these videos that we do at 3 live can be seen on our Facebook page or our YouTube page at any time. So whether or not you can be with us at 3 p.m. at the top of the hour, at any time you can still see these videos with the guests that we have on and the information that we share whenever it's convenient for you. I'd also love to know who's here with us. So if we have anyone, you can go ahead and comment in the comment section, a hello, a thumbs up, any emoji. How are you feeling today? Let us know with a smiley face or a sad face or some Z's if you're sleepy, whatever it may be. But let us know you're here and going to be learning about redistricting with us. I see that Ariana's with us. Hey, we also have Leroy and Isaiah, some of our youth organizers on with us today. Hello to you all. And at any point, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, like I said, it's pre-recorded, so it's a former interview / presentation that we've had on the forum in the past about redistricting and gerrymandering. So at any moment, you can comment in the comment section, and I'll be here in the background to comment on it and to answer them if I can't just type it out, or I can also say it on the live once the presentation is over. So don't hesitate to make any comments or ask any questions throughout the time that I'm showing the video. And we're going to go right into it then. I will start sharing the video for you all. And again, any questions that you have throughout the time, go ahead and just comment it.
Here I am again, and this is my email. I am the Fair Maps organizer. I work with grassroots groups around the state on ending partisan gerrymandering, and I call my presentation the Maps Mess in Wisconsin. So just to give you a little background, redistricting happens every 10 years after the census. So last year at this time, you were probably talking about the census, getting ready for the census, the importance of the census, all those things. And so redistricting happens based on the numbers that come back from the federal government on the number of people in an area. So redistricting happens when we try to put the same number of people, and right now that's the same number of all people, children, undocumented folks, anybody who lives in an area is counted, and for redistricting, for representation, everyone is counted. So in that process, if we were to have 50 precincts, and in Wisconsin we call them wards, that needed to be apportioned into 5 districts, then each one of those districts would get 10 precincts or wards. In order to be proportionate, in other words, we have yellows make up 30% of the district, actually 60% I should say, and greens make up 40%. These long skinny districts would be proportional. Yellows would get 3 representatives, greens would get 2. Or they could be more compact, like the one on the right here, and again, yellow would get 3 and green would get 2. When gerrymandering happens when there is disproportionate districts. So you can see in the one on the left here, these are nice rectangular compact districts, but the yellows get all of them because they have 6 out of 10 of the people vote for them in elections. Conversely, on the right side, the Greens have drawn the maps in odd ways, so they get more representation, even though they are outnumbered in the voting patterns by the yellows. So that's called packing and cracking. There are 3 maps here. Imagine these are maps. We don't live in rectangles, so it's or squares, so you just have to use your imagination here. The first map here is very competitive. The second is packed. The third is cracked. And what that means when a political party, and Democrats and Republicans both do this, depends on what part of the country you're in, when they pack, it means they put as many voters into one district, or as few districts as possible as they can, so that the opposing party has fewer districts overall. Conversely, cracking means they take a few of the voters from the opposing party and crack them off and put them into a district where they will be vastly outnumbered. And both of these things happen in the city of Milwaukee. This is the area that's SOC's turf, or the area where you're located. Over here is Assembly District 9, where most of the folks in the SOC area live, and Senate District 3. SOC's area is really neither packed or cracked because it's a densely populated area, and most of the people in these districts vote for one party. But over here in districts to the west of you, there are folks who are cracked off and put into a district that includes much more conservative voters in Waukesha County. And so the votes of those folks are really diluted, and it doesn't necessarily represent, their representatives don't necessarily represent their interests. This becomes really a problem because it makes votes feel like they're relatively worthless. So if you're a Democrat and you live in a Republican gerrymandered district, like some of those districts to the west of you, you feel like your vote doesn't matter. If you're a Republican and you live in District 9, chances are you feel like your vote doesn't count because you're vastly outnumbered by the folks who live in that district. So the problem with this is that it really makes things much less competitive. It makes legislators much less accountable to their constituents, even if they're in the same political party, because they're unaccountable, they don't really have to answer to their voters, and it deprives us of equal representation. Things become hyper-partisan, and there's a lack of cooperation. So this has a history. Back in 1967, the Supreme Court in the Reynolds versus Sims case said that one person should get one vote, and that became the law of the land. Our own Wisconsin Constitution requires that there be approximately the same population in districts in order to, and this is a quote, maintain the integrity of political subdivisions, meaning municipal and county boundaries, maintaining communities of interest, and creating geographic compactness. And the reason this is important is before this 1967 ruling, there could be rural representatives who had a few hundred voters in their district, and urban representatives who had several thousand. So it really wasn't equal representation. Folks in sparsely populated districts really had an outsized voice in how legislation was created. So the census and one person, one vote became very important. In Wisconsin, the last time that there has been any kind of cooperative bipartisan legislation in creating these maps was in 1971. So this was the first redistricting after that Supreme Court ruling. And just to give you a little bit of a perspective, that number 40, that's me in 1975. I couldn't find a 1971 picture. I was in high school in rural North Carolina, and I now have a granddaughter who will graduate from college this May. So it's been a long time since there's been cooperation in the Wisconsin legislature on maps. In 1981, in 1991, and 2001, there was divided government. In other words, the governor and the various chambers of the state legislature were controlled by different parties. And so there was a lot of bickering back and forth about the maps. They were ultimately vetoed and they went to federal courts. And then came 2010, but it's not quite that simple. Because you might remember that in 2011, Republicans drew the maps, but in 2008, when President Obama was elected, the map on the left here shows that the state was very, very blue. And Democrats expected to win in 2010. They expected to get the governorship. They expected to have both. And they had, in 2009, they had the trifecta. In other words, they had the governorship and they had both houses of the state legislature. They expected to keep that, I should say, in 2010. But 2010 was the summer of the Tea Party rise. The Affordable Care Act had just been introduced, and legislators went home to very angry constituents and who were talking about death panels for grandma, and this is the most horrible thing, it's socialism. And the tables turned in Wisconsin. Ron Johnson was elected as state senate or U.S. senator. Scott Walker was elected as governor, and Republicans were elected to control in both chambers of the state legislature, and they got to draw the maps. When they drew the maps, they drew them in a way that would favor them. They did that packing and cracking using very, very sophisticated software in legal offices and with no Democratic input. And you will not hear me say that was right in any way, but I will say that Democrats probably would have done something similar, probably not quite as egregious, but because that was happening with Republicans nationwide in 2011. So our Supreme Court maps really tell a much different story. They show that Wisconsin votes both ways when it comes to races that are considered nonpartisan. You can see that these are county maps showing red for supporting the vote going a conservative way, and blue showing it going a progressive way. And so you can see that voters have gone back and forth in how they voted on Supreme Court races. And in the most recent two races, in Hagedorn, Brian Hagedorn was elected. There was a very solidly red part of the state, but when Jill Karofsky was elected, there was a lot less red, and she and actually there's not tremendously more blue, but the red is much less dark, showing that there was a lot of switching of votes between Brian Hagedorn's race in 2019 and in Jill Karofsky's race in 2020, showing that there is a very purple state here. Also, voters, when they have been polled in the Marquette Law School poll, have overwhelmingly stated that they would prefer a nonpartisan commission to create the electoral maps. This is in 2019, 72%. And if you notice the dates, this was February of last year. So this is before the COVID restrictions went into effect, and probably maybe just after some of the first COVID cases happened in Wisconsin. Right next door in Iowa, 40 years ago, they came up with a nonpartisan process that prohibits them from using any kind of voting data to rig the maps. One of the things that happened in 2011 is Republicans took a look at where people live, right down to the streets they live on and how they tend to vote within wards, and drew lines that picked their voters so that they knew that they would have a majority. They tweaked the lines so egregiously that they could pump the Democratic vote up to the highest it's ever been in Wisconsin, 57%, and still maintain a majority in the state assembly and the state senate. This is a video that I'm not going to show, but Gabe will be sharing these slides, and you can see it on your own. It was produced by the Wisconsin Farmers Union, just about this whole fiasco around the maps. So the reality in Wisconsin is that our state constitution makes our legislature responsible for electoral maps. Does not say they have to draw them. They have to approve them. And in fact, in 2011, they didn't draw them. As I mentioned, they used consultants and sophisticated software. Then the governor signs them into law, or the governor can veto them. There is no ballot initiative process in our state, so we can't go directly to voters and have something on the ballot to change our state's constitution. In order for that to happen, legislation has to pass the state legislature for 3 consecutive sessions, both chambers of the legislature, and then it goes to the voters. So what we do have are resolutions and referendums. So resolutions are passed by county boards and city councils and village boards, town boards. Referendums are things that citizens can vote on. They are advisory, but we have been able to pass them in 28 counties, every place that a referendum has gotten on the map, and I'll share that in a little bit. And the other thing that we have is public education and awareness and support, so that we can pressure our legislators into representing us. Our goal at the Fair Maps Coalition is electoral maps created this year through a transparent process that includes public input, that consists of districts that reflect the statewide electorate and respects communities of interest, meaning municipal boundaries, school districts, communities of color, etc. Sometimes lake districts, watershed districts, those kinds of things are also considered. There are 3 buckets of work that this really breaks down into. There's the legal strategy, and there is a law firm that was formed last fall called Law Forward, that is a nonpartisan, nonprofit law firm working on voting rights issues and on gerrymandering issues. There is the nonprofit governmental policy arm of the work, and that is made up of a lot of different organizations. SOC may decide to join the coalition and be part of this. Many of the organizations that are part of this have it somewhere in their mission to get nonpartisan redistricting into law. And the lead team on this is about 6 or 7 organizations, including the League of Women Voters, the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, and others for whom this is a central part of their mission. And then there's grassroots activism, which is what I'm mostly engaged in, and that is getting people involved with the People's Maps Commission, which I'll tell you about in a minute, to educate folks about what this is, to get voters to contact their candidates who are running for office, from all the way from city council up to the U.S. Congress, because everybody has something at stake in this. And also we do a lot of letter writing and social media. So since 2014, there have been 28 referendums passed at the county level. It took 5 years, 2014 to 2019, to pass the first 8. And then just in 2020, we passed 20 more, 2020. There were 9 that were on ballots in April, and Milwaukee County was one of those counties that had the referendum on the ballot, and then 11 more in November. All of them have passed overwhelming. The least percentage was Rusk County, which is up in northwest Wisconsin, very rural, very conservative county, passed by 57%. The highest was in Dane County, and Dane County was the first county to pass a referendum. Not surprisingly, Dane County is really blue, and after the 2011 redistricting was kind of in the middle of all the protests that happened around Act 10 and other things. In April, as I said, Milwaukee County passed the referendum by almost 80%. You all probably voted on that. And then there are also municipalities who have passed this. So these are cities and towns and villages around the state, actually in counties that have not, their county boards have not been willing to put the referendum on the ballot. So they've gone to the cities and said, okay, well, the county won't do it. Will you do it? And again, things have passed overwhelmingly. This is a link to the Fair Maps Coalition website, and I'm just going to link over to that and show you what's there, so you have you can check it out later. There's what you see when on that page. This is a link to that.
So, no, we do not see the website. We still just see those slides.
All right.
We probably just shared a specific tab.
I did.
But we will definitely share that website out for people to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Okay, so let me get back. Okay. So what's happening now? There is a rules change petition, which is, I had never heard of one of those until recently, a rules change petition before the state Supreme Court that was introduced by the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. Those are the same people who challenged, who wanted people purged from the voting records. And Scott Jensen, who's the former Republican Speaker of the State Assembly, he was involved in a big scandal and disbarred. But they wanted a rules change to say that any litigation, any lawsuits brought about redistricted maps would go directly to the state Supreme Court. That's a bad idea because it cuts the lower courts out, and the lower courts is where what's called fact finding happens, and where people like us, organizations like SOC, organizations like the League of Women Voters, are able to bring evidence. So they set a hearing on November 3rd. They said, okay, we're going to have a hearing on this. It'll be on January 14th. So that's the day after the election, or maybe it was November 4th. They gave us about 3 weeks to get comments in. We were able to get over 1,900 comments from Wisconsinites in by that deadline. And then just last Thursday, 25 or so of us testified before the state Supreme Court, asking them to reject the rules change. And there were only 4 folks who argued in favor of it. So we're very hopeful that by the end of the month, we'll have a judgment on this from the state Supreme Court saying that that they're rejecting it, but we don't know what will happen with that. Another thing that's going on, in the 2020 State of the State address, Governor Evers announced that he was going to create the People's Maps Commission by executive order. He did that. It was formed this year. And just in his State of the State last week, last Tuesday, he reinforced the importance of this commission. This commission is actually doing exactly what we want to have happen. They are gathering input from folks around the state. They are meeting with experts in how to create maps. And it's really important thing to participate in. And there are 4 more hearings coming up. So you have an opportunity to do that. There are 9 commissioners, 1 from each congressional district, and actually 2 from the 4th congressional district where you all are. And Christopher Ford is the chair of the commission. So these are some of the folks. Anne Marie McClellan is involved in a Fair Maps team up in northwestern Wisconsin. These are the other 4 representatives. Tony Phillips is actually involved in a Fair Maps team up around the Green Bay area in the 8th congressional district. So these folks are meeting almost every week. They meet They have the hearings on the second and fourth Thursday of the month, and they meet with one another on the first and third Tuesday of the month. So they'll be meeting tomorrow. And those meetings are open. The hearings, people have an opportunity to actually register and testify. The meetings you can watch because they are open meetings and they're regulated by open meetings laws. You can't participate, but you can watch what's happening. As I said, there are I'm rolling on my mouse over here. There are 4 more hearings coming up in the 7th, 1st, 6th, and 2nd congressional districts. And you don't have to live in those districts to testify, although folks who live in those districts do get priority because they're focusing on the issues that affect that district. The one for the 4th congressional district happened last Thursday. You can also submit written testimony, so you don't have to testify orally before the commission. There is the link here to the website shows you on the hearings and meetings tab, there's a place to submit written comments. So I strongly encourage folks to do that. Some of the things that the coalition that we're doing to support this work is we have panels of local folks who talk about how gerrymandering affects issues in your region. So on the panel for the 4th congressional district was County Exec David Crowley, also Christine Newman-Ortiz from VOCIS, Anna Dvorak, who works with the Nurses Union, and also Elena Calhoun, who is a volunteer who does a lot of voter registration and other kinds of things. So that is on our Facebook page, and you can watch that. We do those in Facebook Live. We also do a testimony training, and that's how I met Gabe, because she came to the testimony training. And if you're interested in testifying, we do have another testimony training coming up this Saturday at 3 o'clock for folks who want to testify before the commission. So here's what's likely to happen next. The Supreme Court's going to make a decision, as I said, on that rules change petition. There's going to be nonpartisan redistricting legislation introduced in the state Senate and in the state Assembly. It'll be circulated for co-sponsors, trying to get as many co-sponsors, both Democrats and Republicans, as possible. The People's Maps Commission is going to continue to gather input through March. So that's both from experts on redistricting and regular folks who want to share how they're impacted and what their concerns are. At some point, the census numbers are going to come back. I've heard as early as March 6th and as late as June. So that's something that we really don't know yet, and the upcoming inauguration and change of president could impact that. I just heard today that the head of the Federal Census Bureau resigned today. He did have a fixed term, and it would be coming to an end sometime this year, but he did resign early today, so I don't know how that might impact the census. The Republican-controlled state legislature still has control of both houses, of both chambers of the legislature. And that means that they are the ones who get to control what happens. And they are likely to draw maps that look a lot like what we have now. We hope they don't. We're going to, really rattle their cages and say, hey, listen to us. We deserve to have input. These maps impact us. It's not right for you to be able to pick your voters. We should be picking our representatives, but we don't expect to get a lot of, we don't expect a lot of welcome reception on that. The People's Maps Commission is likely it will create maps through this open process, and that's had a lot of public input. It's very likely that the state legislature won't accept those maps, and that the maps that they send to the governor will be vetoed. And then those maps are very likely to, those maps will go to court, probably. most probably. The legislature will have a chance to redraw them, but we'll see. So that is my presentation. I'm going to stop my share. And I just want to address one thing that is often a question after I say, well, you know, these maps are likely to end up going to court. A lot of people say, then why bother doing anything? Mm-hmm. And I think that the best answer I know to that is that if we don't make our voices heard during the process, then legislators, the courts, the court of public opinion thinks we don't care.
Right.
And so it's really, really, really important for us to make our voices heard on this. And so I'm totally open for any kind of questions folks have.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really comprehensive and understandable and informative in so many ways. And
I was a middle school teacher for a really long time.
You can definitely tell in the way that you were able to explain some very difficult concepts, because especially things like cracking, packing, those are words that people don't hear very often. And I'm sure people are still kind of processing what that means and how it comes out in the maps that we currently have too. And so I really appreciate that explanation, going into depth about what those concepts mean, and especially showing the SOC district. That was a really nice touch.
So this is the assembly map. Mm-hmm. And so this is Milwaukee. And sometimes I think that, you know, we live where we live and we don't necessarily think about some of the other things. But when you look, for instance, at Jefferson County here, Jefferson County has 1, 2, 3, 4 assembly representatives. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then they have 1, 2, 3 different Senate representatives. Makes a huge difference. Yeah, when you live in a county that's not that populated, right? Jefferson County is fairly rural. To have that many different legislators, people have been cracked. This is Scott Fitzgerald's district. This is a really blue part that's been cracked off. This area here is really very red. As is this, but this part of Jefferson County is also kind of light blue. So this is very blue. This is light blue. This is really red. And so it could make more sense. It might make more sense for this whole county to be in one assembly district, right? But not. Another really good example, 21 and 22 down here with Racine and Kenosha. They used to be basically the whole county was 21 and 22. But in order to be able to have some of these other districts here end up being red, they consolidated all the blues in, I mean, this is kind of convenient, isn't it? All the blue is here in the city of Kenosha and the city of Racine, and then the rural parts of the county are very red, or, you know, this is kind of progressive, very conservative. So this used to be a really purple district. This was a really purple district. You never really knew who was going to win because what happens when you don't know who's going to win is that the legislators themselves are much more accountable.
Right.
They're not in a safe seat where they don't have to pay any attention. So Democrats don't have to pay attention to Republicans when they're in a very safe seat, and Republicans don't have to pay attention to Democrats.
So again, that was a presentation given by Carlene a few months ago. Some of the dates have been adjusted. For example, the census numbers have not officially come out yet, so that is going to be delayed a little bit. But I hope that was helpful for people. Again, if there's any questions about gerrymandering, about fair maps, about redistricting. All levels of districts can be redistrict. So, we have local things like the school board districts, we have the aldermanic districts, and then there's the state level things. There are the state level districts that Carlene was really focusing on by talking about the different counties throughout Wisconsin. So again, any questions? I put the website that she talked about in the comment section, and then we are here also to help clarify anything if you have any questions. And now I'll just share a video that one of our youth organizers made talking about why he will get the vaccine.
I'm getting the COVID-19 vaccine because I want to walk across the stage when I graduate, so I can do things with my family again safely without hesitation, so I can start my freshman year of college in person, so people stop dying, to return to normalcy, to stay healthy, so people can have jobs again, so I can hang out with my friends again, so I can travel, so I don't have to wear a mask anymore. If you fall on the phases eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine, go to city.milwaukee.gov/COVIDvax to register for the COVID-19 vaccine. Someone will be in contact with you once you have filled this out. Thank you.
Again, that link to register for the COVID vaccine is in the comment section. All people 16 and older in Wisconsin are now eligible, so you can look at a number of locations that are providing vaccines at this point, and there's, appointments available for all people 16 and up. So use that link in the comment section. There's 2 different links that you can use, and let us know, as always, if you have any doubts, concerns, or questions. And finally, I will just leave you with a survey feedback ad. Just asking you to fill out the survey that's in the comment section so that we can know what you like, what you don't like, what topics you want to hear about, and any other feedback you have for us about our forum. Have a great Monday, and we will be back with you tomorrow for Youth Day.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take our quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.